Some villages hide stories that were never meant to be told. Tonight, we bring you 3 terrifying tales from forgotten fields, haunted wells, and cursed roads. Watch if you dare. Years ago, on the night of her wedding, the groom did not come. The procession returned. The house stayed lit. The guests whispered. But by dawn, the bride was gone. Some say she walked into the fields because she couldn't bear the shame. Others say she was dragged by something that lived between rows of ripened stalks. Still, everyone remembers the red dress. Farmers who pass the eastern field at night will tell you the same thing. When the moon hangs high, a slender figure stands at the edge of the crops, a woman dressed in bridal red. Her anklets tinkle softly, a gentle rhythm that belongs to no living person. One harvest season, a man named Rahim worked late. His cart was heavy, his back burnt by the day. He took a shortcut home through the eastern fields. The moon made silver paths on the grass, and the air smelled of ripeness and rot. He heard it first, a soft jingling, close enough that the sound seemed to be under his feet. He turned his lantern. There she was, between the stalks, a white veil, a red skirt, bangles at her wrists. She didn't step forward. She only watched. Rahim called to her, perhaps to be kind, perhaps to prove his courage. The veil lifted slowly, as if someone else pulled it by a string. Where a face should be, there was nothing. No eyes, no nose, no mouth. The veil moved as if breath passed through it, but the sound was the earth itself exhaling. Rahim tried to run, but his legs moved like they were wading through black water. The jingling grew louder, not from her anklets, but as if more bells were being shaken somewhere far behind him. A cold settled along his spine, and then he heard his own name, whisper soft from inside the stalks. A voice not quite him calling for him. He collapsed before he reached the lane. Dawn found him curled on the field's edge, hair as white as cotton, eyes empty and burned out of memory. He never spoke of what he saw, only that he had followed someone he loved, and had been followed back by something that wore love like a coat. After that night, men with late carts avoid the eastern field. If you cross it on the full moon, keep your lantern close, and never, ever answer a call that sounds like the past. The well was older than the oldest house. Its stones were black with moss, and the rope smelled of something that made mothers warn their children to keep away. They said the well did not belong to one person. It belonged to the village's past. Long ago, a woman named Amara lived with her family near that well. One winter, while the river ran low and food was scarce, she fell in love with a man who promised the world and vanished the week before he was to marry her. Shame twisted the small things that remained of her life into barbed thoughts. One night, when the stars were bitter and cold, Amara walked to the well. No one saw her go. No one saw her come back. After that, crying was heard at the well, not always at night. Sometimes at dusk, when the light was thin and the children were on their way home. The cry sounded like a voice trying to call a name it had forgotten. Some villagers said they heard answering voices, whispers from underground like someone trying to talk through thick cloth. 2 boys, daring each other for what boys dare, went one summer's evening to lean over the lip and look down. They swung their lanterns and peered into the black throat and said foolish things to coax ghosts. At first, only silence answered. Then, a small wail, higher than any bird, rose up from the stones. The rope shuddered as if a hand had brushed it. One of the boys, Khalid, laughed, but the laugh died as a pale hand shot from the dark and clutched his wrist. His friend's hand groped for his shoulder and pulled until the skin stung. Khalid came up coughing. His nails were scratched raw. He said he had seen faces, many faces pressed against the inside of the well, their mouths moving without breath. The next morning, the villagers found the bucket at the well tipped, a trail of small footprints in the mud leading to the water and back, but no sign of any animal. At dusk, the old women tie pieces of cloth on the well's rim and mutter prayers. They toss in coins and rice. But on certain nights, when the moon is absent, the cry begins again. A tiny, patient sound that asks for a name, for someone to remember, for hands to reach back down. There is a stretch of dirt that connects two villages. In daylight, it is only potholes and stray dogs. At night, it becomes something else, thin as a vein, hungry as a mouth. Drivers call it the Road of Shadows, because shadows move there like they have places to be. Travelers tell the same warning. If you see someone on the road at midnight, a figure standing with one arm raised as if asking for help, do not stop. If you do, you will not leave the road as you once were. Years ago, a cart driver named Farouk came home from market late. Rain had made the path muddy and slow. He saw a pale shape near an old signpost, a small child shivering in soaked clothes. Farouk was a good man. He could not leave a child in the rain. He stopped and opened the cart. The child climbed in, shaking. Farouk asked where she came from, what her name was. She did not answer. She kept her face turned away. He drove on. For a while she was still there, sitting quietly. Then she was not. He glanced back and saw only the cart bed, damp and empty, yet wet footprints led from the road into the trees. He slowed to the next village to look for help, but the road ahead was empty. No houses, no people. The cart's boards were scraped as if by long nails. Weeks later, villagers reported seeing Farouk walking the Road of Shadows at dusk. Not the same Farouk. This Farouk moved stiffly, like someone trying to turn without opening a wound. He stood in the middle of the path with his head down, and when people drove past, they said his eyes were hollow, as if someone had cut them away and left the sockets to stare at the road. He never spoke. He only lifted one hand, pointing ahead toward the dark tree line, warning them without meaning to. Drivers who ignore the warning find their headlights fail. Their phones die. A voice, familiar as a lover or a brother, calls from the trees. If you stop, you become part of the road's collection, a shadow that keeps the road company. These were 3 stories that villages pass along when the moon rides high and the fires have gone out. Remember, every story is born from something real. So if you ever find yourself walking through a quiet field, passing by an old well, or traveling a lonely road at midnight, be careful, because you might not be walking alone. Subscribe for more horror stories and share your own terrifying tales in the comments below.